This location, it was built in 1885, and it's the only working mill in the whole of London.
Arthur, if I may call you that. Mr. Liberty, sir.
What sort of building was it that was here before the mill?
And they only identified his body because of DNA. There wasn't much left of him. Whoa! Movement behind me.
Well, hopefully we've caught something. What was that?
Who's moving?
What's that noise? Over there by the door.
Something's moving behind us. My whole body's just gone frozen. All through my legs and my back. Something's around me.
Where was that from?
Do you know that song?
Yes, sir, yes. Evan Poison. Manufactured record. Yes, sir. Go. Yes, sir, yes, sir. Yes, sir, yes, sir. Here we go. Yes, sir, yes, sir. Here we go. It's like a light is in my face, but I can't fall for you. I close my eyes and drift away. I've overdosed on you. Cause then you wake up dead one day.
200 years ago, there were only 100 water mills on the River Wandle, and only 4 still survive. The Wheelhouse is the only one in full working order within the London area. The wheel is one of the undershot type with the current flowing beneath. It dates from 1885 through where there were previous mills on the same site for hundreds of years before. Born in 1843, Arthur Liberty was an apprentice draper at the age of 16 and built his business selling oriental silks and Indian shawls. In Victorian times, the fast-flowing River Wandle was used as a source of energy for many industries. He purchased the Wheelhouse on the River Wandle in 1904, and Liberty's designs became famous due to their distinctive patterns, and in 1875 Liberty & Co. opened its first shop on Regent Street in London. William Morris, a great Victorian designer, was a neighbour to Arthur Liberty, and they both became leaders in the Victorian arts and crafts movement, sharing the passion for traditional craft techniques. The wheel was used to drive the rinsing spools and associated drying machinery inside the wheelhouse. Arthur Liberty was knighted in 1913 and he retired in 1914. His death followed 4 years later on the 11th of May 1917. After extensive renovation, the wheel is now in service again, driving a potter's wheel and generating electricity for the lighting of the wheelhouse. For over 30 years, Steve and Claire have had a pottery business at the Wheelhouse, and they have experienced strange events over the years. Electrical failures. Inside the building, it is always cold even in the summer. Piles of stones and rocks appear from nowhere, and when they are removed, they return the next day. Only yards away from the wheelhouse, there have been several deaths. Steve tells us of a story that Claire will not talk about, and the reasons become clear. On Sunday, the 5th of August 2018, Claire was clearing rubbish from the river when she came across a body. The emergency services arrived at 10:30 that morning and removed the body of Nicholas Treadwin. Cause of death unknown. On Monday, the 8th of June 2011, a passerby reported the headless body in the river. Police divers recovered multiple parts. DNA samples matched the profile to Waldemar Drobig. Cause of death was unknown. We arranged to meet with Steve and Claire for more information on the Wheelhouse and to learn more of the paranormal events that have taken place. Hi Steve, thank you for inviting us to the Wheelhouse. So tell us a little bit about the history of this place.
Well, in fact, there's been a water wheel here since the early 1800s, and the river that you see behind you was actually a canal that was dug specifically for the water wheel. This building was rebuilt in 1885, and the wheel itself is an undershot water wheel, huge construction, about 10 feet wide and 13 feet in diameter, and it produced 7 horsepower, which was an immense amount of power in all those days. Sadly, because the building is old and we've got cracks above the doors and windows, we don't have the wheel going round too fast these days, otherwise it would knock the building down.
Yeah.
You're also on the site of part of Merton Priory, and if you dug down another foot underneath this floor here, and in fact you can see part of the old floor there, you're actually on an area that would have been the refectory for Merton Priory, and obviously that was here from 1117 to 1535. The site was then redeveloped, as I say, in about the 1800s, and Liberty and William Morris both had print works in this area. This was Liberty's print works, and they were here from the mid 1800s through to about 1970.
So was this building a lot bigger than what it is now today?
It was indeed, yes. In fact, previously there was an extension that went another 100 yards or so further upstream on 2 stories, and there were probably 200 people working here, so it was a very thriving concern.
So Claire, can you tell me about the paranormal events that have been happening here inside the Wheelhouse?
One is the overwhelming sense of cold in here. Even on the hottest summer's day outside, it is terrifically cold in here, and I can wear a t-shirt, a jumper, a fleece and a coat and I still feel cold. Other people have commented on this aspect as well. Another thing that they have noticed, I don't notice it so much now because we've been here many years, people come in and ask me what that lovely incense is that I'm burning. They can smell a lovely smell in here, and I explain I'm not burning any incense at all, and they look round and they look as if I'm winding them up. But if you think this might have been part of the priory and it might have been a refectory, maybe there was incense burning when they're eating or preparing their food, I don't know, it could be.
I mean, you haven't got anything here that there's no air fresheners.
There's no air fresheners. There's the river. It's a very old building and very dusty, dirty even, and there is not anything in here that could explain that lovely smell. And lots of people come in here and they stop right there and they say, what is that marvellous incense you're burning? Okay. The other one is because this is on the site of a medieval priory, I think the ghosts of the priors perhaps take issue with electronic gadgetry. We carry out eel monitoring on behalf of the Environment Agency and the Zoological Society, and for several years running they install very expensive, sophisticated electronic gadgetry in the river to monitor eel exit on their way back to the Sargasso Sea.
Right. Yep.
And they've used this expensive electronic gadgetry in many other locations, and they put it in the river at this location and then come back a few days later expecting to see something, and everything is just dead, it hasn't worked. They take it away, fiddle around with it, rejig it, examine it, put it back in the river again, and then the same thing happens again and again.
So it's constant equipment failure?
Yes, so the sophisticated electronic gadgetry that seems to fail quite regularly in this building. I think they're perfectly happy with a water wheel. That's old tech, that's good tech, that's okay.
Yeah.
But the new stuff, I think they don't quite like.
Yeah.
They don't quite like.
Okay.
There are 2 piles of earth that have appeared over the course of one evening. I spent half a morning cleaning up, shoveling up a load of cement brick, dust, debris from that spot and that spot. And when we came back into the wheelhouse the very next morning, they were back every bit as big as they had been the day before. And I can't explain that.
So you're finding bits of old rock and bits of dirt,
debris and dirt and dust and muck
in piles. You're
I had
cleaning
cleaned
them
up,
and
and
then
they're
they reappear
back
again.
the next day. And I can't explain that.
Right, let's get the wheel going then, shall we? So I'll just take the brake off and open the sluice.
Steve and Claire fire up the machinery so I can see the wheel for myself in action. With our static cams in position, it was time to investigate the wheelhouse. So here we are at the wheelhouse. This location, it was built in 1885, and it's the only working mill in the whole of London. Nothing that we can do about is the river that runs right through this building, but that's pretty good, because they say that water, it stirs up the paranormal. Sorry guys, but I just heard there was something moved behind me. I mean, okay. So Steve and Claire have told us that no matter what time of year it is, even in the heat of summer, it is freezing cold in here. And I must admit, within probably a few minutes, I've felt the cold. It's changed very dramatically. They do also report the smell of a nice fragrance, and also piles of rock that seem to appear. They clean it up and remove it all, sometimes in big bags, and then the next day it's back again. The rocks are back again. So I guess the first thing that I want to do is to speak out to whoever is here, whatever spirits. Sorry, I thought I heard something else behind me again. I'd like to speak to any of the spirits that are here and ask you if you can come forward and speak to us, please. Now, Steve and Claire have given us permission to be here this evening. So is it possible that you can come and stand next to me? And speak into this red light. So can I ask you what your name is, please? I'm Jeff. The gentleman there is Phil. And the gentleman over there is Mark. So can you tell us your name, please? Now, back in its day, this mill was huge. It was 2 stories high, and it went further on down along the river. Perhaps you was a worker here? Did you work with textiles? If so, please come forward.
Well, I'm quite excited about doing an investigation in here, because this was part of the workshop of Arthur Liberty, the Mr. Liberty. This is where he started, where he was printing fabrics to those wonderful designs, and the dyes which were used were all natural. None of this modern stuff. It was all done with natural materials, and once they've been printed, they were brought here. And to my left, it's quite incredible really, but there's they're like washing lines, but they wrapped the material round, and the wheel turned them and dunked them into the water, and that's how they rinsed it. And then from there they would go into another part of this mill for a drying process, which again was powered by the water mill. So to me, from this fairly humble beginning, this building, this is a man that went on to have fantastic designs, and of course opened the famous store Liberties of London. Anyway, I'd actually like to ask Arthur, if I may call you that, Mr. Liberty, sir, whatever, are you here? Can you talk to me about how you started? Come and join me now. I would be so interested to speak to you.
All seemed quiet inside the wheelhouse, but as we all know, things can change dramatically at any point, so we press on with the investigation.
Firstly, let me start off by introducing myself. My name's Mark. My friend Phil already introduced us earlier on, and I've got Jeff over there. I'm now stood in what is basically the wheel well for the spinning wheel that's powered by the river behind us. I'm still a little bit above it, but to the left of me is the remains of a medieval floor from whatever building was stood here before the mill was built. I'd like to ask, what sort of building was it that was here before the mill, where the remains of the medieval floor are? Could you tell me, please?
So it's moving.
What's that noise? Over there by the door.
Something's moving behind us.
Who was making that noise, just the rattling or scraping noise? Could you do it again for us, please?
A Apart from something moving behind us, there were no EVPs captured. So we moved through to where the wheel is located, which is only a short distance away from where the bodies were found in the river. So we've come outside next to the wheel. I've also got with me a very sensitive digital recorder that I've put on here. It's facing out that way towards the river. And I must admit the river is very, very loud. But the reason I've come outside now is to see if we can make contact with the two people that were found dead in the river. So back in 2011 there was a Polish gentleman that was found in the river that had no head, very badly decomposed, and they only identified his body because of DNA. There wasn't much left of him, and they do not know how he died. They don't know if it was suspicious or if he just fell in the river, but he must have been there for some time, and his name was Waldemar, originally from Poland, that lived in this area. So Waldemar, can you hear my voice? If you can hear me, I'd like you to come and join me.
What was that? Did you hear anything then, Mark?
No, why?
Did you hear a voice?
Yeah.
I did as well. I just wasn't sure.
No, it was definitely a voice.
Phil and I hear a disembodied voice, and it is a voice of a woman saying, "Quite strange." Here is the voice taken from my digital recorder. If you can hear me, I'd like you to come and join me.
What was that? Did you hear anything then, Mark?
No, why?
Did you hear a voice?
Yeah.
I did as well. I just wasn't sure.
No, it was definitely a voice. What was that? Did you hear anything then, Mark?
No, why?
Did you hear a voice?
Yeah.
I did as well. I just wasn't sure.
No, it was definitely a voice.
We complete our session outside by the wheel, and we now move back inside.
Okay, I've moved to a different part of the mill now, and what we've done is we've set up a paralight, so hopefully if anything comes by us, it might light up. It'd be good. Well, I spoke earlier about the designer Arthur Liberty, and there was another very influential designer who was one of his neighbours, and that was a chap called William Morris. Now, they both had the same ideals, they both had very similar styles, and they were friends, and it's quite likely that William Morris came here. So I've got to ask the question, William, are you here? Can you spare the time to be with us this evening? Now, I think all three of us have asked quite a lot of questions about you know, when the mill was used for the design and production of the fabrics. I'm going to ask a more general question. Is there any spirits here? Are there any spirits here that can hear my voice at the moment, who'll be willing to come up and talk to us? Now, we heard a woman's voice earlier. Could I ask you to join me?
An EVP is received on Phil's digital recorder of again a woman's voice saying, "The war." Here is the audio with enhancements.
Could I ask you to join me?
I wonder if that fragrance, that nice fragrance that people comment on when they come in here to Claire, and she says that she's got nothing like that in here. I wonder if that's the perfume from the lady that we heard earlier.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a possibility. Do something now. Either shout as loud as you can, move something, push something off of the shelf, or touch one of us, but summon up all the energy you can and do something to let us know that you existed. Well, hopefully we've caught something. What was that?
Did you hear a chink?
Yeah. I heard you, thank you.
It sounded like
It was on the pottery.
It was tink.
Yeah.
it was either a sound of a bell
Yeah.
or someone hitting a piece of the
Pottery
pottery.
together, yeah. That's
That's what we've
fantastic.
been asking, wasn't it?
Well, hopefully we've caught something. What was that?
Did you hear a chink?
Yeah. I heard you, thank you. Well, hopefully we've caught something. What was that?
Did you hear a chink?
Yeah. I heard you, thank you.
Whoa. Movement behind me.
Come towards us.
It's coming from over that direction and the noise did as well.
My whole body's just gone frozen. All through my legs and my back. Something's around me. From behind the shelving of the pottery, the sound of someone moving is heard. Here is the audio enhanced. Whoa. Movement behind me. Whoa. Movement behind me.
Hello? Are you there? Are you worried about joining us? Where was that from? Another knock or a footstep even, but it wasn't in front of me. That's why I spun round, because it sounded a bit more like it was over there. Yeah, there's movement.
Where from, Phil?
Over there somewhere. Don't know where. Where are you? And again.
Towards the doorway that leads out to the wheel, heavy footsteps are heard, followed by movement and even more unexplained noises.
Are you there? Are you worried about joining us? Where was that from? Yeah, there's movement. Where are you? And again.
Okay, so we've set up several pieces of equipment now. We've got the paralight down over there on the floor. Got the REM pod there. We've got the music box that's facing that way, and that will trigger and go into alarm, play a tune if it picks up any movement. And on top of the music box I've put the sensitive digital recorder. So I'm hoping that you can hear my voice, and I would like you to come over into this area over there. If you can do that, hopefully one of our devices will pick you up and we'll know that you're here with us. Can you come and stand in front of me, please? Can you touch one of the devices that's there on the floor? They won't harm you. Or if you stand in front of the music box, it will play a tune. Do you know that song? My digital recorder captures an EVP, and it's the same woman that has spoken to us twice before, and this time she says to me, "Do you know anything about the war?" Here is the audio taken from my digital recorder. Do you know that song? Do you know that song? Our After the investigation, we inform Steve of our findings, and he then tells us that next to the Wheelhouse there was a World War II factory that repaired turret guns for Blenheim Bristol bombers. Did the spirit of the lady once work there? 2 of her messages was the war, and do you remember the war? During our time there, we did experience equipment failure, which has been reported on many occasions. Phil's camera was drained of power for no reason, and also our SLS cam had no power, even though I'd fully charged it before the investigation. Hopefully, one day we can return and find out more answers that still remain inside the Wheelhouse.